What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Mets Central podcast. And today we are going to talk about the series that just occurred against the Atlanta Braves, where unfortunately the Mets ended up splitting against them. We're going to be talking about trade deadline stuff since it's right on the horizon, the ad of Jesse Winker, potentially what else they could do, as well as some starting rotation woes that need to be addressed, and a unfortunate injury for the season that we will talk about. Before we jump into everything, please be sure to leave a like on the stream on your way in. Subscribe if you guys are new, especially if you're a Met fan, and turn on your notifications so you know when we upload or go live. If any of you type in the chat, sorry if we are in the middle of a conversation and we don't get to your chat. We will try our best to get to it when we can. But yeah, rough series to end it. Rough way to end it. So the Mets start off on fire in that series, and we couldn't be any more on a high from the start of the series. They end up getting the walk-off win to win 3-2. Then they just demolished them 8-4 on Friday. But there was, of course, the feeling of there was that feeling where now I know what Jet fans felt when Aaron Rodgers got hurt and then they still won that game on opening day, because that's what it felt like when Senga got hurt and they won that game. And then the past two games have just been a complete and utter shit show, whether it's the pitching not getting it done or the offense not coming through. You take your pick at what to be mad at more. But just overall, give your brief thoughts on the series before we dive deeper into it.
I think if you want to sum up the best way, it's missed opportunity. Because, like you said, you take those first two games, we're all hyped, we're all excited, even though, with the unfortunate Senga news. And listen, we were there on Friday. That building was buzzing. It felt like a playoff. It felt like a playoff game, and probably it had, if you call back, it probably felt the same as when the Mets played the Nationals in that August series in 2019, when that building was just loud and the team was rolling at that point. I mean, they exploded in that third inning, scored 7 runs. You had the home runs from Alvey, from Vientos, the grand slam from JD. And yeah, yesterday they couldn't score, and then obviously today, just David Pearson started off well. He then shit the bed in the fourth inning, looked okay in the fifth, but obviously we'll talk about Stanek because he absolutely shit the bed today as well. Not a good first appearance for him out of the Mets bullpen, but yeah, the offensive woes today were just scary. Too many opportunities missed with guys on base, way too many, and I guess kind of a little humbling experience to see that even though the Braves are injured, they still have a very good team, and you can't take them lightly because they have plenty of players as we've seen today. Where Austin Riley took Stanek deep. They still got plenty of talent on that team, and I know Fried's not out for the entirety of the year, so he'll be back pretty soon. And yeah, the National League wild card race is not over, even though some certain
Oh, we
WFA
could just say his
put
name,
out.
even though I don't want to give him any publicity, which, Salicata, by the small chance you're listening to this, the fact that you blocked me over me saying something ever so simple, come on. That's just soft, man.
That's
That's just soft. Own
well,
it and take it on the chin, and just do what every single person in media has to do, including myself. I've had multiple times where maybe I declared something too early, or maybe I was wrong about something. All you have to do, Sal, instead of being a soft pussy and blocking everyone for calling you out on it, just put your hand up and say, I was wrong. And it's an 80, it's a 100, I almost said 82, geez. It's a 162 game season for a reason. And I shouldn't be declaring things over in the middle of July. But apparently he learned nothing from 2 years ago when he called it. I mean, you know what? Give him a round of applause. He did it in July instead of May. So you know what? Give him a round of applause there. Although I'm sure he would have in May if the Mets were actually playing better baseball then. But just own it. Just own up to it. Just own up and admit your wrongs. But to
Yep.
get back to this team now, yeah, it's just so annoying. Like you said, the first two games in general felt like playoff games, especially with how loud the crowd was when Jeff McNeil walked off that first game. And it's even more annoying because missed opportunity is the perfect word, or perfect wording for the series, because you win when Chris Sale was on the mound. You win when Charlie Morton was on the mound. And it's like, if this offense was able to get to those guys, they should be able to get to Schwellenbach as well as get to Ronaldo Lopez, who has had a good year, but he's also been struggling a bit because of the fact that he's starting to deal with a little fatigue since he's been a reliever the past few years, and it's kind of catching up to him, which he was pulled out of the game early today. But they don't do anything with the opportunities, and unfortunately, there's a conversation that needs to be had that is very deep with the starting pitching, because I don't know what they're going to do. And I think we'll segue into the starting pitching discussion because it's probably the biggest elephant in the room, since it feels like every ounce of life has been sucked out of the Mets since Senga got hurt and since they announced that he's done for the year, which really is a huge blow because, like you said, the building was just on fire for his return, and he looked like he was poised to give 7 innings and potentially give a DeGrom type return, get 12 strikeouts maybe, and have that type of impact. And we finally saw what it was like to have an ace on the mound for the first time in a while, and it just got sucked away from us and quickly. And now you watch the past 2 days where Tyler McGill did the thing where he got through the order the first time, and then the order the second time coming up had issues. David Peterson got through the order the first time. Second time, had issues. There's a lot of problems here. And I don't know what you do.
Oh, listen, we said before on the last podcast that you asked me that should the Mets acquire a starting pitcher at the deadline, and this was even before Senga took the mound and got injured. So now it's definitely they need to add a starting pitcher. You know, it's going to be tough because depending on the prices. I mean, ideally we would like a Tariq Skubal, but probably the Mets are going to be priced out of that deal. Then you got guys like Garrett Crochet, Eric Fetty, who of course the Mets were close to signing in the offseason. Unfortunately, though, he chose to go to the White Sox because he thought there was a better opportunity there because there was less competition because the White Sox are just ass, to put it nicely. And yeah, who really? And then of course you have you have Jack Flaherty who's out there too. It's going to be interesting who they target. Obviously, like I said before, they have to add a starting pitcher now. There's also other things you could do. I mean, like for example, Jose Budo didn't pitch today. Will they consider putting him in the starting rotation, and maybe calling up Sproat and putting him in the bullpen, or maybe calling up Sproat and putting him in the rotation? Even though I would like to do that, and I wouldn't like to do that because obviously I would like to throw him in, see what kind of stuff he does have. But you also don't want to rush to get into a pressurized situation right now where the Mets are in a playoff race. So it's going to be tough. Let's see what David Stearns has up his sleeve.
Yeah, and it sucks that we don't have an answer, but we will, thankfully, at least within less than now 48 hours. But that's what I found interesting when you brought up Jose Budo. I find it interesting, and I mentioned in my post game, I found it bizarre that he didn't even warm up in the bullpen once today. And I don't know if they're going to move him back to the rotation or what, but to me, I'm sorry. If you're not going to go out and add 2 to 3 starting pitchers, I'm talking that they might need to add that many starting pitchers at this rate, because I don't trust Tyler McGill. I do not trust David Peterson. And I don't know if Christian Scott, what he's going to be when he comes back. But I'd imagine at this rate, he's probably going to go to the bullpen anyway. There has to be a conversation that Jose Budo just needs to be turned to and be one of the guys to go into the rotation at this rate, because it makes legitimately 0 sense. Well, I'll put it to everybody this way. Would you rather have the guy that can get through a lineup once or a guy that can get through the lineup multiple times? Because I think it's very simple that you could get Jose Budo's type of production from Tyler McGill in the bullpen. Tyler McGill is fine when he doesn't face a high volume of when he doesn't have to get a high volume of outs. The problem is he's in a situation where he has to get a high volume of outs. I'd rather just see Jose Budo, who has gave distance and volume for this rotation this season before and has proved he could do it, versus Tyler McGill or David Peterson, who, yeah, his numbers look great, his counting numbers, but faced like the Marlins 3 times, the Pirates in one of those rotation turns, and I forgot the other team, all bottom 10 offenses. Shout out to Carson, he had the tweet on that. But I'm more comfortable at this rate with putting Jose Budo back into the rotation, rocking with him, Quintana, Minaya as 3 of your starters. I forgot to mention Severino. So you have 4 of your starters right there. Then you're putting yourself in a spot where grab a starter that's, I would like an ace caliber guy, like you mentioned with Scooble. To me, it's a slam dunk to overpay and just do it, because you just cannot replace the production that you're losing now from Senga. And I get that the team has got here without Senga thus far, but there's a reason we were all excited for him to come back, because guys like Quintana and Minaya, how much could you, like, how sustainable is it when those guys aren't giving you length in the rotation? You need a guy that's going to go out there and chuck 7 innings every now and then. Like, I'm sorry, it can't just be Severino, who has injury problems. I think Jose Budo's capable of doing that if you put him back in the rotation. And you need to acquire another arm that could do that. And then you have potentially a 5-6 man rotation there. And then I'd like them to add insurance for if this happens, to where they don't have to put Tyler McGill, or David Peterson becomes your insurance, and that's a great option. That's fine. That's fine if he's an insurance option, but they have to, at the very least, in my opinion, put Budo back in the rotation and acquire an ace level guy.
That's the biggest thing you mentioned. Those keywords. They need guys who are going to eat innings, and it's something I've been screaming about, and something you've been screaming about. And I'm pretty sure every single Met fan has been screaming about. Our starters, why we're concerned going into the playoffs, is because genuinely, if the Mets fix this bullpen, and we know when the offense is clicking that they can score runs. We've seen it now throughout this hot stretch. But if your starter's not going to give you innings, and you're going to tire your bullpen out and burn them out, you won't go very deep into the playoffs. And I know, like, when we were talking about starting pitching options, I know one of the big trade targets that might be on the move because of the Giants being out of the race is Blake Snell. Now, I'm very hesitant about Blake Snell because of the things that we said, inning eaters. And listen, I get Blake Snell's a 2-time Cy Young Award winner. He was very good in Tampa. He was solid in San Diego. But the thing that worries me about him is he going to give enough innings? Because he loves to get his pitch count up quickly in games, and he does walk a lot of guys. And considering, I know he's pitched better of recently. Part of that's because he struggled earlier because he waited so long to get a contract. And I think he signed in mid-spring training that 2-year deal with the Giants. But he'd be moving out of San Francisco from a ballpark that's already very hitters friendly. It's got one of the biggest outfields in the MLB, to a stadium, a ballpark in Citi Field where it's a bit hitter friendly. I mean, it's a bit pitcher friendly, but is he gonna get beat up here? Like, I'm not sure. That's why I'm very hesitant to, if they were gonna pick up a guy like that. Plus, you also have his $38 million. I'm not sure if it's a player or a team option. It probably is. It probably is a player option. And considering that he's had a bad year this year so far, I don't imagine seeing him declining that player option and picking up that $38 million for next year. And listen, I get it. We all talk about, Cohen's the richest owner. He's got the deepest pockets. But just because you have the deepest pockets doesn't mean you should go out and just, pick up bad contracts just because you're capable of doing it. Because eventually, listen, I'm sure, I don't know how much it is, but I'm pretty sure Cohen does have an internal budget.
Oh, I thought you meant for his player option. Sorry.
No, yeah, it was $38 million for the player option, but Cohen, I know we said like he's got the deepest pockets in the MLB as an owner, but I'm sure that internally he does have a budget at some point, and you just don't want to pile on dead weight in terms of contract money just because we need this guy, bring him in.
Here's my counterpoint to the idea of bringing in Snell. My counterpoint would be, ever since he's come back from an injury, he's been giving, first outing gave 5 innings, which again is pretty much the norm with this rotation. But ever since then, it's been 7 innings. It's been 6 innings, which is far more than what the Mets have got from any of their starters, where it's 4 2/3, 5 2/3, 5 innings. So you're at least getting a few more outs. And the biggest thing that makes me want Snell more than maybe a Crochet or any other arm, Snell's arm is probably the most fresh out of any of these starting pitchers that you're going to get, because he hasn't thrown a lot of innings this year, whether it's because he didn't sign until later on or it's because he got hurt and he needed more time to ramp back up. The reality is, it looks like he's back to himself right now, and it's a guy that is now giving both innings, and he's also giving very good, he's putting up some good strikeout numbers as well. And he is a guy that has before been kind of a mix where you don't know what you're getting from him, if it's going to be a strikeout heavy day or a ground ball heavy day. But I trust him, at least with this defense, if it's a ground ball heavy day, because this defense behind him will do really good. I don't hate the idea of it. The thing that does worry me is what you mentioned with the option there for next year, because if you're tied to him for $38 million next year and he regresses, that's not going to be pretty to have. But that goes back to the other counterpoint, where the Mets are probably going to spend money on a starter anyway next year. They're going to be gambling regardless. And they pretty much have no starters under contract anyway for next year. So it's like, why not maybe take a chance here, especially with money coming off the books after the season, and maybe Snell just fills the void. But the other counterpoint again is, what's the return cost going to be? Because there are going to be a lot of contenders lining up to try to get Blake Snell if he does get moved, because of the fact that of the reasons that I laid out. He's a fresh arm. He's a guy that is now proving things are back to him. And it's not like he went up against, I mean, two of those starts that he had, two of his better starts were against the Twins and the Dodgers. Those are no slouches of offenses that he went up against. And of course, the Rockies do suck, but he had 15 strikeouts. Like, nobody on the Mets was getting 15 strikeouts against the Rockies. Our guys were struggling. So I go back and forth on it, but if they're going to get a starter, I prefer for them to go down the route of getting either Snell or Skubal, because these guys have control over them.
I think that the biggest thing with me with Snell is just the return, because I don't really want to overpay with it for him. Skubal, I'd be more willing to overpay just because I think he has
He's
the brighter, younger, got the has a brighter future ahead of him. I'm not sure how many more years of control he has.
I think it was. I think it's 2.
2, yeah. Plus he's probably got the chance of winning a couple Cy Youngs in his near future. So that's the guy I'd be more willing to overpay for. But that's up to David Stearns. I don't know what his viewpoint of overpaying is, because I mean, like another thing we brought up before, or maybe somebody else brought up, but David Stearns did not make those trades last year that Billy Epler was in control of the trade deadline last year, and he acquired guys like Drew Gilbert, Ryan Clifford, Luis Angel Acuna. We don't exactly know whether David Stearns likes or dislikes these prospects that were acquired last year at the offseason. So would he be willing to flip on a Luis Angel Acuna in a Tariq Skubal deal? I mean, I would, just because the Mets already have a large influx of middle infielders in their farm system. But that's up to me. And like I said, I don't know what David Stern's interpretation of overpaying is.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the thing that I do, the only thing I will say is I do think Snell will cost less, but I don't know. Like, regardless of the situation here, though, um, whether you think it should be Snell, whether anyone thinks it should be Scooble, the bottom line is the Mets have to be shopping in this caliber of starters. I'm sorry, but I wanted Eric Fetty, and I like Fetty, but I don't know if that's cutting it at this rate. And would I be happy with them getting Fetty? Yeah, but I'd also be saying there needs to be more. I'm at the rate where you need, like, this isn't just a thing where you could just sweep it under the rug because, oh well, we got here without Senga, so we don't have to worry. But let's also remember what this team was doing early in the season without Senga, and they were struggling. So it kind of goes both ways, where they both, yes, thrived without Senga and struggled. The bottom line is, in my opinion, whether it's Crochet, whether it's Snell, whether it's Scooble, it has to be somebody of that caliber, because I just don't think getting Fetty, unless they want to get multiple starters, and you can maybe sell me the idea of getting Fetty and I'm trying to think of like another lower name starter. But regardless, like Fetty and another starter of that caliber, you can maybe sell me on that. But I think they just have to go for it. And I know that they might have to overpay, and the market's going to be steep. It's very apparent the pitching market is steep right now. But you have guys you can move, whether it's Angel Acuna, whether it's Brett Beatty, who maybe teams want to take a flyer on. I personally, this is probably going to rub people the wrong way. I'm not as high on Drew Gilbert as most Met fans are. I always felt, even when they made the trade, that Ryan Clifford was the better prospect in that trade. So I'd be comfortable if they even moved Drew Gilbert. I would. I think that it's fine if you're getting a guy with control, and Drew Gilbert's 23 already too. I don't think it's going to be hard to sell the fan base on moving Drew Gilbert, maybe like Acuna or Beatty, plus a starting pitching prospect for Scooble. I think that's going to be an easy sell on the fan base, honestly.
What if they wanted a guy like Jet Williams? Would you do it even? Because I know, I mean, I haven't watched like a lot of Jet Williams. I don't watch minor league baseball, so I'm not a prospect guy at all. I see the prospect rankings and I go based off that, and I look at the numbers occasionally, but I don't know with Jet Williams. He's projected to either be a shortstop or a center fielder. What exactly is his upside? I don't know, but I'd probably be willing to consider a guy like Jet Williams too, if like we said, if it's for a guy like Scooble.
Yeah, I agree. I think I like Jet Williams. I mean, the kid's only 20, and he's also been injured, so it's kind of hard to judge and gauge, the status of him. He only has a very select amount of a sample size in Double-A from this season, and not great numbers there, but it's only a select size, so again, hard to gauge there what he could be. But yeah, I mean, to me, the prospects that I would consider off limits in deals right now are Ryan Clifford. If you still want to count Ronnie Mauricio as a prospect, I'm still personally keeping him off limits. Sproat is obviously off limits when we get to the pitching side of things. Scott would be off limits in my opinion. Outside of that, Jonah Tong, maybe. Marco Vargas, maybe. And that's pretty much it. Everyone else, and it's not to say that I don't like these guys, because I do think that Drew Gilbert will be a solid player. I do think all these guys have legitimate MLB upside and potential, but I just don't view them as highly, personally at least, as some other fans do. I think Kevin Parada is a guy that you could sell on while he still has name
Yeah,
value and while he's
Colorado.
heating up.
Yeah.
And teams love to trade for catching prospects. So maybe Parada, you could make a team be stupid and think that he's good right now. I don't know. But all I know is that to me, I have very few prospects that would be off limits in a Scooble deal.
Parado was always a guy that was probably gonna get traded eventually because Alvey was always the number one catch was the number one catcher in these in the farm. So eventually, whether it be this offseason or next or this trade deadline next offseason, Parada will be moved eventually because even if he has some potential upside and he's able, to reach the level that uh, scouts were projecting him to be when he was first drafted, he's not going to reach that potential over here with the Mets. It's going to be within the team. But it's funny, like how we go back to last podcast, and we were talking about Scott and saying like would you consider Christian Scott and a Randy Rosarena deal? And then little did we know later that night, Randy would in fact be traded to the Mariners, and the return was nothing like we were talking about on here. It was I think the Mariners 14th and the 31st prospect in their system. It's
Yeah.
just it's crazy the return that how low the return was for Randy, but I'm sure we'll get into this. But looking at the lineup right now, like cool, we got Jesse Winker in. That's for me, I like that addition personally, but I think there might have to be another bat that needs to be brought in, especially when you look at second base. And I know you've been talking about this guy for a while in our group chat, but Brandon Lau, the Tampa Bay Rays, would be an ideal trade target because, like you said, hits the ball hard, which is right now, which has been the thing that's made this Mets team very successful so far this season is hitting a lot of home runs. I mean, we saw in the third inning of Friday's game, just the bombs that the Mets were hitting off Charlie Morton, and he's playoff experience with the Rays, obviously, and like you said, and like you said that you're surprised that Stearns really hasn't obviously we don't know whether he's been talking to the Rays or not, but you're surprised that if Stearns doesn't go from that, it would be a shock because you'd figure he would like him because he hits the ball hard, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and that was my thing. As to because we'll talk about Winker first a bit. And just to wrap up my thoughts on the pitching, yeah, I do think that even Scott, I mean, maybe he would be available. Like I wouldn't be greedy if Scott could get a Scooble deal done. I wouldn't be greedy there, but that's neither here nor there. It does suck though seeing some of these offensive guys that have gone for way less than what we thought they would, and yeah, that includes Randy, who I wanted badly. But the Winker trade that happened, they didn't give up really a high prospect. Like I'm fine with. I liked Tyler Stewart personally. I think he's a guy that does have, I think he's a guy that's going to be a major league arm at some point. But at the end of the day, I don't know if that's going to be as a starter. So I don't know how much value there is there. But you do that trade all the time. And that's what I said when I made the video, that as long as they didn't overpay, I really was cool with the deal. My only thing is that I want fans to know, and I listen, it's one at bat. I don't want to completely be like, oh, Jesse Winker's, we're doomed here, and this guy's not going to be good. I just want fans to be warned that an at bat like today was an example as to what worries me about Winker is that, yeah, he's going to get protection, which might cause him to see more pitches, but his game is to just get on base and walk. Like, look at the on base percentage, look at the walk rates. That's his game. And he does hit for power every now and then, but there's also concerns about the bat speed. And if pitchers are pounding him in the zone, I do worry if the strikeout numbers are going to go up an absurd amount there. Time will tell. But either way, he's been producing. And if it continues, great. Then I'm very happy. And we'll see what happens. But they needed to get this type of player anyway, because at the end of the day, it's better than what you had. So I'm fine with the acquisition. If you're not getting better, you're getting worse. So I'll take it. But like you mentioned, there still needs to be another bat, because as I also mentioned in my video, if anybody is counting on Starling Marte to come back anytime soon, and nonetheless, even like, what's the over under for him staying on the field when he comes back, and how many games he's going to get? Because it feels like the guy's doomed for either injuries, and if he's not injured, he's at least close to it, and it's hurting the team because he cannot play good in the outfield. If they're counting on Starling Marte, then that's a problem to me. And it's not because the guy hasn't produced when he's been in the lineup. It's been on and off, but you can't do it. You just can't. I think they need to, like, the guy hasn't started running, and we're almost in August here. Like, what are we talking about him making an impact down the stretch here? They have to add another bat. Whether it's Brandon Lau, like you said, whether it's, I don't know who else is even available right now, because my focus has been so on Brandon Lau, because like you mentioned, I like the idea that he could play second base. You could easily slot him in second base on the days when McNeil either takes off, or you put McNeil in the outfield. Perfectly fine. Like, there, McNeil will still get his playing time if you get Brandon Lau here. And Brandon Lau hits the ball hard. His slugging percentage is .524 right now. I'm sorry. Whether it's him, I don't know who else it could be, but I think they need to get some sort of bat, because you're starting to see, and it's unfortunate, but the honeymoon with Iglesias right now is starting to come to an end here, and he's starting to regress back to the mean a bit, which he's a fine bench bat and a fine, bench piece, because he could come off the bench, get the stolen bags he needs, play some good defense, but I mean, he can't be hitting second. He just can't. And that's why I feel it's even more important they get a guy like Brandon Lau, where, all right, if JD Martinez needs an off day, you could have someone DH and Brandon Lau could bat second, and it's a lot more comfortable than having Jose Iglesias bat second.
Yeah, I'm surprised even that they're batting Jose Iglesias second. Like we mentioned, Jose Iglesias was always supposed to be a bench player, and he's a fine bench player. Don't get me wrong; he's been doing everything that he's needed to do this year in terms of off the bench and in the clubhouse as a great clubhouse guy. But yeah, the fact that Lau can play second in the outfield, it helps, especially since with McNeil right now is like, he had a bad game today, but I know that he's been hot recently. But is this like a little hot streak right now going on, or is McNeil starting to find his form and he just had an off day today? Like, I don't know, but I would feel a lot more comfortable if you had a guy like Brandon Lau in this lineup, because, like I said, or like you said, hits the ball hard, hits home runs, and which is right now what the Mets are doing and what's working for them.
I'm just gonna continue to shake cheeks here for Brandon Lau, because I just have to right now. Because people were telling me, bring up Jesse Winker's RBI stats. All right. Jesse Winker in 101 games has 45 RBIs. Brandon Lau in 57 has 34 RBIs. So, what are we talking about here? His OPS is near 900, and that's with him struggling out of the gate when he first got healthy. Like you mentioned, hits for power, and he's a guy that can play corner outfield too if you need to. If you really prefer Jeff McNeil at second base, then I think you'll be fine with Brandon Lau playing the corner outfield. And who knows, maybe you could try him even at third base, but they got to get a piece. If it's not him, it's got to be someone of a similar magnitude that could play a little bit of the infield, a little bit of the outfield, because Iglesias cannot be the only backup infielder on the bench. But who knows? I mean, Ben Gamel was like one of the only good players today, so maybe Ben Gamel's here to stay. Maybe I've got it all wrong, and maybe Ben Gamel's here to stay, and then Marte, when he comes back, will just take Gamel's spot. What do I know? But I think they'd be foolish to not trade for another bat, because, like you mentioned with McNeil, is this who he is now, or is this a flash in the pan? And in my opinion, if you're making a playoff push, you cannot bank on this. It's better to have a problem of too many guys playing well versus a problem of not enough guys playing well.
I think another guy we got to talk about, and because listen, I get it that he was a big part of that hot streak. He was, you just couldn't get him out most of the time. But concerning his shitty start to the second half, Brandon Nemo's got to wake up
Yeah.
because he's been way too bipolar this year in terms of his play style. I mean, he started off the year horrible, low batting average, similar to Lindor. He then picked it up a little bit. He had that big home run in the first Braves series in Atlanta, where he helped them lead to victory. He got a little hot there. Then like in May with the rest of the team, just got cold. And then he had that just incredible streak where, like I mentioned before, you couldn't get the guy out from June till the middle of July. And then after the All-Star break, I think he's now like 3 for 37. Like
Yeah.
he has to be a lot better. And considering he was the guy that came out during that on-field interview with Steve Yelps and was begging Steve Cohen and David Stearns to buy at the trade deadline, and now he's regressed back to back to look like he never played in the MLB before. It's like, bro, you want our leaders here, like you're one of the big clubhouse guys. Like you got to start to step up here.
There you go, Sal. I'll put my hand up and say that ever since I said Brandon Nimmo's a top 10 athlete in New York, he's been regressing. There you go. I'll put my hand up. Now you put your hand up and say that you were stupid too. But yeah, all jokes aside, they need Brandon Nimmo to be back to what he was most of the season. If he's not, you got another problem there, because right now, this is my problem with the top of the lineup right now, is that Lindor, you're starting to see it be him kind of carrying the load here. Like JD Martinez, and this is what I mentioned also with JD Martinez, because he had the great game on Friday, and then the next day he gets the golden sombrero. I mean, there's just no consistency right now from JD Martinez, and I get he's on the back nine, but it's just so infuriating where the top of the lineup, there's just really no consistency right now. Like before the All-Star break, they were firing on all cylinders. That's the most consistent we've seen, and we knew they were going to regress back to some sort of mean here, but now it's like, okay, if Lindor's producing, then Nimmo and Martinez aren't producing. If those guys are producing, then Alonso and Lindor are not producing. If Alonso's producing, then the top three are not producing. Like, there's never a cohesiveness with the top of the lineup right now, and it's causing a problem. And a lot of that does stem from the way Nimmo's been playing since the break, which is really just frustrating. And then, like you said, with or like I was saying with JD Martinez, the guy has a great game. You think, all right, now he's going to string it together. Doesn't happen. Pete Alonso, the guy's just not producing right now in the clutch. And then another guy that's something that we didn't mention is Francisco Alvarez. He has not been good offensively as of late, and it's really hurting them. He hasn't been good for offensively for the past 15 games at this point. Like, this is becoming a deep slump, and he's starting to regress back to what he was doing offensively last year, which is what's even more alarming, where if he's getting a hit, it's because he's jumping on pitches, but if he's not, he is striking out a lot, and he's not patient enough at the plate right now. He's not drawing his walks like he was when he was on fire just a couple weeks ago. So, but again, this is where there's the conversation that I've had multiple times. This is what you get, though, when you have an offense that lives and dies by the long ball. You have these rough stretches. It just is what it is. But it's so frustrating to watch. That's the thing that sucks about it.
Yeah, I think Alvy had that. He broke out of that home run draw. I think he went like 50 something at bats without a home run before he hit that home run on Friday. But I mean, yeah, then also just like, when I was talking about with Nimmo, going back to him, my biggest thing with Nimmo is that it's so like, I don't know what's the word, but it's either he's really hot or he's just really cold. Like there's no middle ground with him. It's like it's like cool. I get it. Like you were playing like a National League MVP candidate throughout that hot stretch. But I mean, like, and I get it. You were gonna cool off eventually. Now, listen, would I have liked you to continue playing an NL MVP? Yes, yes, I would have. However, can't you just go regress from that to like a 250 hitter where it's like you're still driving in runs, you're still getting some big hits. You like I said, you're getting those clutch hits, but you're not doing it at the same rate as you were during that hot streak. It's just like it's so one sided with him. It's like just be at least decent. Like I'm not like I said, I'm not asking you to be on fire the whole time, but also don't be complete shit the whole time either.
Like I was saying before, though, like that coincides with the fact that when you have a team, and especially him, who he's kind of changed his game, like we've seen it, where he's trying to pull the ball and hit the ball hard versus just putting the ball in play like in years prior. And this is kind of his first go around at it too. So now he's kind of hitting a rut, and that's where they need to. I mean, this entire lineup in general uh needs to get their shit together. And I don't know what they could do with hitting drills and stuff, but they gotta get something. I don't know if it's using the weighted bats again or what it is, but they gotta they gotta figure it out, because like you said, this is just not good enough where it's always either this lineup's not doing shit or this offense is, because like I said in my post game too, we're on such a high when this team wins, because they are just killing teams, but the losses are ugly because guys are not producing, and that's just what it is this season.
I think we should bring back the 2019 juice balls.
I wish. So then Pete Alonso could actually get his shit going right now, because uh,
We're
I would kill.
talking about he had his Chris Paul home run today.
Oh yeah, of course. But all jokes aside, I'd kill for him to be hitting so much better than he has. Like, why can't you be hitting these home runs all the freaking time, man? Like, that's your game. I don't know if Boris got in his ear and is like, yeah, put the ball in play, get your average up, because that's gonna get you a bigger payday or what. But whoever told him that he needs to start putting the ball in play instead of being a power hitter is a moron. If it's somebody on the Mets staff, they need to be fired yesterday. And if it's Boris, then slingshot him off the White Stone. I don't know what to tell you, because it's annoying that Pete Alonso's been this way this year.
Yeah, no. Especially since it's his payday coming up this year, and right now, if he continues up this type of play he has, like he's gonna lose out on a lot of money. Unless of course some dumb owner decides to just give him a $300 million contract, which I don't think is gonna happen. But never underestimate MLB owners. Artie Moreno.
Yeah, who locked his GM out of a room to sign Anthony Rendon. But we'll shift gears again back to the pitching staff, because we didn't even really talk too much about the bullpen, which probably for the better, because this bullpen is a steaming hot pile of dog shit. But there has to be a conversation here. I don't know what you do. I really don't know what you do at this point, because you are kind of just, and it just seems like the Mets at this point are holding out hope that Nunez, Garrett, and Sean Reed-Foley are going to be healthy soon, and that's going to save this bullpen, because at this rate, you have so many unusable arms. Jake Diekman needs to go. I don't care anymore. Like, you have two serviceable lefties that are better than him. Why is he here? What is he doing here at this rate? There's not a single player you're telling me on the 40-man roster that's better than Jake Diekman right now. There's just no way you could sell me that. There just isn't. They have to still acquire a reliever probably, or multiple. I'd like to see them expand the depth, because I don't want Eric Orsi to continue to be the first guy called up when there's an injury. But they're not. This is why I also argue I don't care if they move Budo back to the rotation, because you could put McGill in the bullpen. You have Denzel Nunez coming back. You have Reed Garrett coming back. You have Sean Reed Foley coming back. So you're probably looking at Jake Diekman's days being numbered, Adam Ottavino days being numbered, which could, again, equal Budo back to the rotation, McGill down to Syracuse, and then, when Sean Reed Foley's healthy, that's your three that comes in, and your bullpen is Diaz, Stanek, which, oh boy, with him today, Maton, Nunez, Garrett, Sean Reed Foley, and then Danny Young and Alex Young. But either way, they have to get a lot better in Syracuse because, like I said, Orzi can't be here, and if Stanek's going to be like this, then that's another guy that you're looking at and saying, slingshot him off the Whitestone, because this is, what he did today is not going to cut it, but it's one outing. I'm not going to completely ridicule the guy yet. But I just am curious as to what they're going to do, because you cannot trot out Jake Diekman anymore. You just can't. At least Adam Ottavino got you outs today against a good part of the order. But you have two lefties. What are we even doing here anymore? What's the point?
Yeah, look, with Stanek, don't get me wrong, he was just fucking garbage today. He was dog shit. He was not good at all. He gave a fastball right down the middle to what was it, to Austin Riley? Oh no, he hung the slider to Austin Riley, and I think Orlando Arcia was the other home run he gave up to, and I think that was a fastball over the middle of the plate. Look, I shouldn't really give a complete pass to him since he's a proven major league reliever. He's been on
shit hitters.
Yeah, and he's been on teams that has gone far, like the Houston Astros. But I'll give him a pass today just because, like you said, it was his first outing. But if he does this next outing, then it's time to have a conversation, build another slingshot on the Whitestone Bridge. But yeah, I think a guy for me, I know you mentioned McGill, put him in the bullpen, but a guy that I always was intrigued about putting in the bullpen, and maybe they did one time, and I'm just forgetting about it, but I'd like to see Peterson as a bullpen option, just because he can give you length out of that bullpen. He could be a long man, similar to what I know Trevor Williams was a righty, but he could be a Trevor Williams type guy, and he is a lefty, which are very valuable in bullpens. And as we've seen today, you put him through the lineup one time, he can get outs. He had his fastball working well early in the game, his slider working well, and that's always been the thing with Peterson is when he's on his game and he's able to locate his pitches, he's a very effective pitcher. But like we've seen many times, whether that be his first year, second year, third year, this year, when he loses control of the strike zone, it's not pretty. He looks like a guy that's never pitched in the major leagues before, or a guy that's pitched in general. He looks like me when he's on the mound and he can't locate. But I think, and like you said, you get Diekman out of here. You have Danny Young and Alex Young, who have been really good so far. I'd probably keep Alex Young over Danny Young just because I think we've seen the bat of Danny Young so far, and I think he will start to regress eventually, and will have to be sent down to Syracuse and AAA. But if you could have Alex Young and David Peterson as your lefty options coming out of the bullpen, then I think that'd be a great option. And even like we said before, if the Mets make the playoffs, he could be what Cologne and John Neese were in 2015, as those those starters turn relievers that you need. You could come in, get you those big outs, or if one of your starters gets hit up really good, he could come in and just eat innings during a game.
You just solved the problem here. Until Nunez and Garrett, Sean Reed Foley are back, this team, which again, it goes back to the point where just acquire starters. I'm at the point where I don't give a rat's ass if if fans want relievers, if this and that. I'm at the point where you could find your way with the scraps here. And David Peterson, in terms of reliever numbers, since you mentioned it, pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff out of the pen before. If you look at his 2000, I want to look more recently because 2020 he was in the bullpen, and that was when he was his best, where he didn't allow a run, but that's only 4 innings. And 2020, so out of sight. He's a different pitcher now. Um, in 2022, in 14 and 2/3 of an inning, 3.68 ERA, which is like serviceable. And I really don't care about reliever ERA anyway. Allowed 6 runs in those 14 innings pitched. Like, those are fine numbers. And let's also not forget that I'm sure some of those outings were him coming in to be a mop-up type guy. And then 2023 last year in 8 innings, 2.25 ERA. I want to look at strikeouts per nine, which is really not bad. Still has the walk issue, which really kills him. But a 2.76 FIP out of the bullpen last year. You could work with something there. I don't think it's crazy to say, why don't you just add a plethora of starting pitchers at the deadline? You move Peterson and McGill to the bullpen until guys are healthy. And since those guys have options, they could go back to Syracuse. And now all of a sudden, look at that. You created bullpen depth and you didn't have to make a single move. Look at that. How did we figure that one out? Like, it's... And you still have Sproat lingering around that could make bullpen appearances. And you still have Scott. When he comes back, you could put him in the bullpen. You have options for this thing to be put together. I would just rather them say, you know what? Let's just go balls to the wall in the starting pitching market. Let's go get a Jack Flaherty. Let's go get a Skubal or Snell. Let's go do that because we could create a bullpen with what we have. That's just my 2 cents, but I highly doubt both management and other fans will agree. And it is what it is. And we'll never have the answer of if it would have worked because I just don't envision that being the route they go down. If we're being realistic, they're probably going to keep Peterson in the rotation. They're probably going to acquire a bullpen arm or two, and they'll probably acquire one more starter to replace McGill, and that will be the end of the conversation there. And then, like I said, we'll never know what could have been.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, like you said, they're probably going to go in the direction where they get one more reliever, probably a lefty, get one more starter, move McGill out of the rotation, and they maybe get another bet. I don't know. It depends on the price. But then listen, now they blew their opportunity here with Atlanta, in terms of just jumping them and, having them in the rear view mirror. But now they got a big 3-game set against the Twins where, the Twins are fighting. They're still fighting the Guardians for top spot in the AL Central. So they got to at least win 2 out of 3 in this next series. And then once you get to August, then it really lightens up and the Mets have to take advantage of that August schedule because there's plenty of series where they should sweep or just take either 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4.
Yeah, and that's where it really sucks that they couldn't win when they had Atlanta in a stranglehold, because it really could have just changed a lot of how we look at things. But yeah, you play the Twins, who are playing very good baseball. It's gonna be interesting to see how this goes, which I don't even know what's gonna happen on the 30th because I find it stupid that the deadline's at 6 o'clock. So I don't know how you scramble and have enough guys rostered for that night of the trade deadline, but it is what it is. And yeah, then they start to play a lighter part of the schedule. So I don't know. We'll see what comes from these next stretches of games, but I'm very curious of how they handle the next 30 plus hours or so with the roster because there is a lot that needs to be addressed all of a sudden in a short amount of time because from, like I said, where we were at such a high not too long ago, we are now facing a bit of a slap of reality. And you know what? Maybe these 2 losses are what both the team and the front office needed to really gauge what this team needs and like I said, it could just be a reality check, a little bit of a slap in the face of, yeah, we need to get a little more help than maybe we initially thought.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. Because we thought riding off those two first wins, that's like, oh, I mean initially before the series, I thought they were going to win they were going to take 3 out of 4. I thought they were going to win the first game, take the second game, lose the McGill game, and then win the fourth game. But yeah, just the offense just didn't come through, and like we mentioned earlier in the podcast, like gotta get another bat. Please get Brendan Lau. I mean, considering how low the asking price was for Randy Arozarena, like I can't imagine the Brandon Lau price point being too crazy high. So
Considering he's a rental, yeah.
considering he's a rental, also, yeah. At least Randy had control on him for another 2 years.
That's my biggest gripe if they don't address uh helping out the offense more, is that none of these guys are bringing in hauls. The biggest returns have been relievers. Like Jason Adam and AJ Puck somehow have brought back the biggest returns. This is why I'm saying too, just build your bullpen from within. You could do it that way, and just go grab starting pitchers and go grab a bat. It's not like you have to give up the kitchen sink to get another bat. So why not just give it up to get a starter? It's not like we're talking about a reliever. We're talking about a starter here. But I don't know. Realistically, one thing I've learned from deadlines, from all of my sports teams, whenever I want something, I don't get it. So I have to accept the reality, and learn to cope with it before the 30th, because at the end of the day, it's just the reality of how it goes every year, where I want something, it does not happen.
Tariq Skubal is our Jake Gensel this year.
Yeah.
Just hopefully he don't end up in Atlanta.
Or even worse, Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah, Philly.
I don't know if they have the ammo to do it. Maybe they do, but yeah, I don't really know if there's much else to talk about in terms of like injury updates. Like I mentioned, Marte not even running still, yet somehow the front office is trying to convince us that he's closer than we think, which I don't know how. I think Reed Garrett, did he start facing hitters yet?
Maybe I'm not sure. I know before the Friday game they were saying that he's close. I know Sean Reed Foley's supposed to pitch maybe tomorrow or Tuesday in Brooklyn in a relief outing, so he's close to being back. He probably pitches, probably maybe gets two outings before he comes back up here, maybe 3, depending on how the first 2 go. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, tomorrow we got Quintana on the mound. Saturday you got Tuesday you have Manai on the mound, and then the Wednesday game, which I will be at, you got Sevy on the mound. So I'd imagine probably Quintana worries me tomorrow. So I wouldn't be surprised if they lose that game. But the Manai and Sevy game, they definitely got to pick up wins in those games.
Yeah, I agree, especially the Sevy one. And just to continue the injury updates, I don't think there's anything on Nunez thus far in terms of him throwing. I mean, he was just placed on the IL, so I didn't expect really anything, but that's just the injury update. So, and I'm trying to think if there's anyone else that, because I'm looking at the IL. Obviously, Senga we addressed, who had that injury done for the year, and everyone else that's on the IL is already been confirmed to be done for the year a while ago, like Mauricio, really unfortunately, which I freaking will wish every day we had him still in this pen, and Drew Smith, who honestly, not even a Drew Smith guy, but I'm down bad for Drew Smith right now. Like that's how, look at how far we've come, that we're down bad for Drew Smith right now. But yeah, like you mentioned with the Twin series, you're at the point where you gotta just find a way to get wins, especially after. To me, I look at this as what happened after the Marlins series with the Yankees, where when they lost, when they split with the Marlins, I'm like, now you have to sweep the Yankees. With this, I look at it as, now that you split with the Braves, I feel like you have to sweep to really salvage some of the damage that you did to yourself. But is it going to happen? Probably not. Realistically, I think it's either a win or they take one out of the three here. But I don't know. The Katana game. Shen. Isn't it Semyon Woods Richardson for the Twins tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know he's throwing a no-hitter tomorrow against this former team that he was in the organization for. And then who are the Twins trotting out there for the next?
You got David Festa in the Tuesday game against Mania, which he has an 8.16 ERA, so the offense should beat up on him.
All right, so he's gonna have a career outing like Schwellenbach, and then Pablo Lopez, who's been on fire as of lately, which freaking sucks. And I do think doesn't he have good numbers against the Mets? He's with the Marlins at one point,
so yeah.
So probably chances are pretty good that he was. Oh, man, yeah, he's been so good as of lately. His last outing, 7 innings, 2-run ball, 7 strikeouts. But yeah, we'll see what happens over these next few stretches of games. Do you have anything else that you want to address before we wrap up the stream here?
Just bounce back in this Twin series. Just start hitting again. Get good pitching, and for me, take 2 out of 3. But just also, want to wish speedy recovery to Kodai Senga, because that sucked, and it was such a killer in that game because he was pitching really well. I mean, he only had that one mistake to Adam Duvall where he left the cutter hanging over the plate. But and also he was getting up some hard contact, some deep contact in the first couple innings. But after that third inning, he really settled down and had 9 Ks and was really looking like he might have won 7. And what even sucked most about that injury was because at first we didn't notice, because I forgot who popped it up. I think it might have been Matt Olson, but Matt Olson popped it up, and we're all looking at the ball and whether Pete was going to get it, and we all initially thought that Senga was trying to play the ball, but you looked at the replay, he was just trying to get out of the way and go cover first base, and him stepping off the mound, and he with his calf, and he strained it. It sucks. It really does.
Yeah, that's what I thought at first. I thought he was trying to catch it, and then he got called off, and he was trying to run out of the way. But yeah, he went to cover first, and it's just so annoying. It's just so annoying how much it killed that night. But if he comes back for the playoffs and he's pitching like that, there you have another fresh arm, and that would be great if he comes back and thrives in a return. But that's, of course, a discussion for another time. But yeah, before we wrap things up, a little bit of housekeeping in terms of the channel over the next few days here. Matt's going to be covering the Twin series because I will not be able to. And I don't know if I'm going to cover the first game of the Angels series yet. I'll have to see how tired I am since I get home that day. But there's a chance that either way, I'll just watch that game and then end up covering it. I'm not sure. Are you doing a podcast after the Twin series too?
I might. Depends how I feel. It depends whether they piss me off or not.
Fair enough. All right. So so you'll get the coverage still, just not from this obnoxiously loud mouth of mine, and from the stupid face.
Don't worry, you get it from the Polish loudmouth.
Yeah, you get it. Pause. But yeah, you won't be hearing from me over the next few days unless the Mets make a trade of significance, where I'll, of course, even if they don't, I'll probably just make like a quick video while I'm out in roaming Florida. While I'm out there, maybe I'll give you guys some content there in terms of trade deadline stuff, if there's anything to talk about, which there better be. But
yeah, it depends. If they make a big trade, I might just put out a little quick video with my reaction, or I just might go live quickly just to see how everyone else is feeling and my reactions. But we'll see.
Yeah. So that will be it in terms of content over the next few days. Outside of that, after that, I should say, we'll be back to regularly scheduled programming until yet again I am out of town for another part of later August. But for after this stretch, it will be for the next 2 weeks, just your regularly scheduled programming where we do a podcast after every series, recapping every game. Not sure when I'm gonna do what we're gonna do about the podcast for the Cardinals game because that's just the most random shit thrown in. We'll probably just do it after the Rocky series, but
Yeah, that makes sense after the Rocky series. Just throw it in there.
yeah, just throw them in there. Uh,
Oh,
But yeah, that's going to be it for us. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like if you haven't already. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on your notifications so you know when we upload or go live here on Met Central, especially over the next few hours when hopefully there's some moves to be talking about, some trades. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.